Hey everybody, or whoever is, I know it always takes a second for you guys to join, but here I am. We are entering Adams Point in Durham, and we're just gonna see what's going on. I'm excited because we're gonna see a lot more woodland flora, hopefully. So I'm just gonna do the usual strolling and see what we can't find. And as usual, please go ahead, post your questions right away, and I will answer them live, or if you're tuning in later, that's great too. So here we go. And actually, I want to stop here first because I think we're going to see this plant a few different times. And it's really important to see how variable it is because it's one we want to be mindful of. This is poison ivy. Okay, you know, and some of the leaves actually start off round, as you can see here. And, you know, ivy doesn't always climb. This one's kind of climbing pretty low. So although poison ivy is kind of seen as a foe, it's where it grows, it's building a boundary for the forest. And typically it's because the forest is tread a lot in these areas, or the soil or the land has been disrupted. And so it literally creates a boundary of healing and for the other life that's in it, which is really cool. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit so you can see how it's shiny in this tiny little leaf section in the middle. So I have made an essence. Let's see if I can pull it back now. I've zoomed and now I can't zoom out. My hands are greasy from my sunblock. All right, here we go. So I've made an essence, and you know, I'm not going to go into the exact discussion of how to make an essence, but we've talked about them in the past, and you'll know that it's energetic medicine. So none of the physical plant isn't contained. It's just the energetic, spiritual footprint of that plant. And what I've used it for is, or the message that I received when I was making the essence was all about boundaries, especially when you're going through deep transformation and healing, when you have maybe loosey-goosey boundaries, or maybe your boundaries are too firm. It helps you to build a better relationship with what are the boundaries in your life and how you can allow them to facilitate whatever healing or transformation you're going through. I've also given the essence to a friend who had it horribly, like had the contact reaction to poison ivy, and it helped like homeopathic. So that was really cool. So it actually helped to dispel the physical rash of poison ivy just by taking the essence. So it certainly can be used in that manner as well. I'm trying to zoom out here. Okay, so hopefully we're going to see another couple examples of that poison ivy, but I wanted to stop there and at least just show you. And all of this, of course, is that wild rosa, the wild rose that we saw. That I believe this is the multiflora. I don't see any of the blooms yet, but just another example. It's a lot happier over here, not quite as wastelandish as the ones we saw before. This year we have wild honeysuckle. I'm not exactly sure which species it is. And other than its amazing aromatics and skincare sort of attributes, I've not used it very much. I'm just gonna take a little whiff. It's really lovely to smell. A lot of people will make their own flower water or hydrosol with it. But this is one of our wild honeysuckle species. And again, I don't know the genus of this particular variety, but the flowers are unmistakable, and of course the scent as well. Lots of high bush blueberry we're moving through. Lots of those asters, those woodland asters that I had mentioned earlier. We've got a lovely burdock all by its lonesome here. I wanted to tell you that if anyone has lilacs blooming around them, they should definitely take advantage. I just made some lilac lemonade. It was delicious. And really you just follow a regular fresh lemonade recipe and then add, you know, depending, like if you have one big pitcher full, adding like 4 heads of the beautiful violet, I'm sorry, not violet, but lilac blossoms. Okay, so here's another great example. Same plant, looks totally different. Okay, so this is where people typically go, oh my gosh, it's the 3-leaf shiny red. Here we go. So here's our friend poison ivy again. You can see the distinct difference in the coloration. And then over here, we've got a little bit of both. This one really doesn't have a ton of red on it at all. And then back there, very red, very shiny. Again, it's not climbing up anything here. It's just on the ground. And, honey, can I bug you for a second? Can you pinch my screen closed? My fingers are too greasy and it's not working. It's not really doing it, huh?
Nope.
Okay. I thought it was just me. Okay, so again, just wanted to show you, and then I'm going to move up, being mindful about stepping in it. This guy is like completely matte, like he's not shiny at all, but the next door, same exact branch, super shiny and red. So just keeping your eyes peeled, noticing that there is a slight serration of the leaf, but there's not a lot of it. So a lot of people get this confused with that that ground raspberry that we were talking about earlier, and that is very serrated and it has little thorns on it. This you can see is smooth, some serrations, but they're very long. They're not sharp. There's not a lot of tooths to it. All right. Lots of grass. Being mindful that tick season is upon us. Gratefully, they don't like hot days, so hopefully there's not too much in these fields, but this is where they like to hang out for sure. So we're just going to keep on walking. We've got a beautiful patch of our ground ivy. Again, all poison ivy back here. Craziness. Didn't notice it last time I was here. So I want to show you this patch of plantain here, and this is the Rugeli because it has that purple stem. And see how it's getting kind of ruffled and wrinkly? I'm not saying you can't use it now, but you really want to catch it before it gets to this state. So think about, especially if we're using it for skincare products and salves, you want the fresh, sort of delicate leaves for your oils and extracts. So this is kind of like for rougher, it's like a rougher, older, aged plantain. And again, I don't want to say you can't use it, but I feel like especially for chewing on and using as like a poultice, it's a little bit more, it's going to be more bitter. It's going to be just not quite as potent as the fresh shoots of the spring. But this is about the size that you're going to want to harvest as well. But try to find ones that are a little bit smoother, a little bit fresher. And that's not to say you can't use them, but the younger leaves tend to be more potent, I would say. Again, look, I think it's such a pretty plant when it's shiny like this, but man, is it everywhere. All right, moving along. Wow, I didn't really see it hiding. All right, I guess we'll go up through this way. This is, I mean, I don't know if you can tell, but this is literally a field of poison ivy, and it's just growing straight up. I don't think I've ever noticed it like this before. It almost looks like little trees. So crazy, but this is where they felled a lot of the sumac trees. So, you know, again, where there's disruption, that plant will pop on up and start trying to protect the area. Really beautiful patch of our yellow dock, our curly dock right here. Excuse me. Here's some of the sumac here that didn't get chopped. And this is very young. Typically when you want to, there's two types of sumac. One is the staghorn, one's the poison. The poison will have the white flowers, and it won't be fuzzy. So this is the staghorn. This is the kind that is medicinal. And you can see the fuzzy stems here. I'm going to try to get out of the way of the sun. Oh, let's see if I can zoom in here. So you can see the fuzzy stems. And so you'll be able to notice that fuzziness is present throughout. And that's one of the, the main parts of the plant to notice when you're distinguishing between the two. It's the red flowers and like berries that you want to use as teas, and they have an enormous amount of vitamin C and antioxidants. So think of it as nature's you know, well, rose hips are also in nature. I was gonna say nature's rose hips, but another rose hip-ish type thing. So great for cold and flu remedies. And it tastes, you know, similar to hibiscus. So it's just delicious. It's very cooling to the body, cooling to the system. So perfect summertime tea. And we are talking about this plant at one of our other walks. And here we go. We've got our wild geranium. I was saying we've got to wait for the flowers. Look how beautiful they are. Here we go. Let's see if I can zoom. I'm sorry, guys. My screen is really foggy and I'm having a hard time seeing. Okay, here we go. Beautiful bloom. And you can see the very similar leaf shape that looks very similar to the to buttercup, which hopefully we'll see as well. So this is a really powerful astringing herb. So think of it for wound health, for skin care, topical poultices. You can infuse it into witch hazel or create a liniment, again, for tonifying. I've not used it internally, but you can certainly use it internally for things like gargling, for sore throats, things like that. Very powerful astringent. And I've not worked with the essence, but I really want to. It's such a beautiful plant, and I wonder what its spiritual message might be. So wild geranium here. And you can actually, we can see that right down here, what's left over of the sumac berry flowers. I say they're berry flowers because they're very fuzzy, so it's almost like a mix between a flower and a berry, but that's what you would be making tea with. Okay, and look at all of this wild geranium, this whole patch. Well, there's some goldenrod mixed in, but you can see how beautiful it is here. Some more of the wild rose mixed in. And some of this might be rugosa as well. All right. And then speaking of buttercup, these are teeny tiny buttercups, but some of them will grow quite large, and so that's where they can be confusing between the geranium and the buttercup. So I want to show you here the similarity in the leaves. So here we go. This is the leaf here. They can look very similar, and then of course we've got this gorgeous flower that's unmistakable. Buttercup. So I've not used buttercup because it's typically toxic. Although I read recently that if you dry it, it loses the toxicity factor, but I've not delved into that very much. But the flower essence is literally what you would think it would be for, to heighten lighten the heart and bring just joy and a sunny disposition to your mind when you're feeling out of sorts and heavy-hearted. And it's not toxic to a lot of animals, although it is to horses. Horses will not eat buttercup. All right, so now we're headed into the woods. Excuse me, I'm just gonna take a sip of water here. All right. And again, I know this is redundant, but it's important to see here we have poison ivy yet again. Much larger leaves, pretty muted color, but still growing along the ground. Often we will see it climbing up trees, but I've not seen it yet. I'll point it out if I do. Beautiful pond. So the happy little bullfrog somewhere might be able to spot some of the more watery type weeds. See if I can't spot anything. Oop, someone just jumped in.
There he is, pop back up.
Oh yeah? Oh, I see him, he's huge. Sorry guys, I can't zoom in that close, but there's a really fat bullfrog right in there. It's very sweet. All right, some more buttercup. We've got more of the geranium. We've got some baby sumac, again, mixed in. We've got some goldenrod. Lots of grasses. It smells nice, they just mowed. Oh wow, look how gorgeous. This is just all of that beautiful geranium right here. Just want to go take a snooze right in it, although I'm sure I'd get attacked by ticks and bugs. So back here, I'm going to see if I can't get a little bit closer without falling down the hole. This is either blackberry or black raspberry, and I was telling you how, I'm still trying to figure out the the riddle of the rubus, blackberry, red raspberry, black raspberry ID, because the leaves don't tend to follow rules. But I will tell you that between blackberry and black raspberry, that raspberries have a little hole in the center of them. Blackberries do not, so that little core stays filled for blackberry. Black raspberry, it pops open and there's like a little hole in the center of the berry, like a little dugout. So that's one area. And again, they're used pretty much interchangeably, aside from the leaves of red raspberry, which is highly medicinal for the lady parts and reproductive, and very mineral rich, very astringent. All right. It is warming up fast. It's nice. So back here again, we have a lot of that shiny poison ivy staring at us, a lot of goldenrod, a lot of cut mowed grass, and geranium, and that blackberry / black raspberry. Again, this is all sort of felled area here, so I have a feeling the poison ivy will follow suit. We've got a little plot of autumn olive, so another well-known invasive of the area. And kind of fun fact, this is the very first flower essence I made, and actually we got some flowers on this little specimen back here. So they're sweet little yellow flowers. These guys haven't quite opened yet. And when I sat with this plant, it was telling me about higher learning and starting new endeavors of educating oneself on the spiritual plane and otherwise. And it was right when I was starting my apprenticeship at Misty Meadows, so it was kind of perfect message for that time. And that people use the leaves, the flowers, and the berries are all edible, and they're really wonderful immune enhancers, immune strengtheners. So for folks who are struggling through cold and flu, or even just as preventative medicine during any type of cold or flu season, autumn olive is a really wonderful choice in building and strengthening that immunity. You can often find the capsules for sale at the health food store. Olive leaf. I wonder if people come here to pick berries. There will be a lot this year. It's amazing how much I've cut. You can see the ocean a lot clearer here. So we're heading back into the more woodland area, and we'll see what we can find after the field. Right now it just looks like goldenrod is popping back through this section. seeing a lot of oak that I do want to talk about, but I'm looking for white oak, so I want to hold off. Might be that there's only black oak to talk about, but I'll keep my eyes peeled. And I thought that I saw some Solomon seal on the way over, so I'm hoping that maybe some will pop up, but if not, we can always find it on the way back. Got some examples of that low bush blueberry, I'm sure. Yeah, all this stuff. So it's identical use to the high bush that we had seen. So this is just the low bush, just a shorter version. Some of them will be getting their blooms very soon. High in antioxidants, great for diabetics, regulating blood sugar levels, hypoglycemia as well. Anything to do with regulation of appetite and blood sugar. And it's just delicious. Just kind of looking up the hill, seeing if I'm not missing anything. Here's some of the little bellflowers forming here. See if I can't focus them for you a little bit. There we go. They're a little pinkish right now. Okie doke. So nice and quiet here. Last time I was here, it was very busy. So it's nice to have the opposite. Tons of blueberry. Okay, actually we have this tiny, it must be that, yes, here we go. Oh no, we have a tiny white oak. I thought it would be right above us, but it's not. It must be in the vicinity. Right here. So you can see the smoothed edges, the rounded edges. They all have serrations, but this one is round. And white oak is known as one of the most powerful astringents that you can utilize, and it has an affinity for dental health. And according to Matthew Wood, I haven't used it in this way long term enough to really say that I agree with him, but he's a pretty brilliant herbalist. He says that you can actually fill in tooth caries from long-term use of gargling and swishing with white oak bark. And so when it comes to wildcrafting trees, it's a little trickier, especially if it's the bark you're after. You don't want to go for the core bark, like digging into this stuff. You would want to use twigs and branches and the younger growth. And of course, you really want to make sure you're asking permission. You're not harming the tree. It's a large enough, sturdy enough tree to harvest from. So I've actually never harvested my own just because I feel uncomfortable doing so at this point. I haven't found enough in the area that I feel comfortable wildcrafting with. So I always buy my white oak bark already processed. But typically you would want to take the young bark, peel it, shred it, dry it before using it. But the interesting thing about a lot of barks is that, particularly white oak bark, is that the best way to extract it is actually a water infusion. So one of my favorite ways to make a mouthwash is to combine yarrow tincture, aloe vera gel, white oak bark, probably a couple parts of olive oil or melted coconut oil, and then a couple drops of essential oils. It's a really wonderful way to clear out the teeth, heal the gums, moisturize the gums, reduce inflammation, and maybe prevent cavities, according to Matthew Wood. But he's had a couple different case studies, or I should say client studies, where he's had success in the way of filling cavities, like literally growing the tooth back, recalcifying the tooth from this beautiful little tree. So maybe we'll see a larger version, but I wanted to stop here just in case we didn't. And give you a little view of the water here as I take another sip of my water. It's getting roasty. All right, and we'll continue on down. I'm going to walk a little bit further down this stretch, but then I think I might just turn around and go in the other direction, as there might be a little bit more popping up. Okay, so this, I'm going to have to double check, I've been doing this lately, which species, but this is either crampark or black haw, and I mix them up because they're very similar, but you can see here, I still feel like I'm in zoom mode. For whatever reason, I can't get out of it. All right, so here we go. The flowers, when they open, are usually a whitish hue, which makes me think this might be black haw instead of crampark. But either way, these are very similar trees. Same thing, it's the bark. So, similar to the way I just spoke about harvesting white oak, you would use the same guidelines there. And you can see there's a ton of little patches back behind us. But black haw and crampark are both used to help spasms. So particularly menstrual cramping. So if you're someone who has really painful cycles and you need that alleviation of cramping and spasming, this is your friend. I like to combine crampark or black haw with valerian, mugwort, and lemon balm when it comes to cramping and discomfort within the uterine muscles. And it's also, because it helps to stimulate, but it also helps to kind of calm those muscles. Women can use it postpartum to make sure that they birth the placenta, and then they can stop bleeding from the birthing process. So it's a really helpful plant for all spasms, but in particular, menstrual. Well, I feel like this is just mostly rockiness now, so I feel like we're gonna turn back around and head out the back way from here. Look at our friend white pine up in here. Beautiful choice for extra vitamin C. Talked about earlier, it makes a great oximal. Alright, so back out, but I think we'll still see some woodland friends on the outskirts as we cross back across the fielded area. Lots of chippers around. They always sound so huge in the woods, like the ruckus they make, and then you just realize, oh, it's just a chipmunk. All right, enough more. Oh my gosh, I don't think I've ever seen this much poison ivy here, but it's interesting that it's happening when they've cleared a lot. My father, where I have all of my gardens on his property, he has a bobcat, and he likes to drive around in it, and he doesn't really care where he goes. He kind of tears up a lot of the woods along the way, and every time the following season where his tracks are more poison ivy. So it's interesting to note when you do spot it, just kind of take a peek around and see how the land has been treated, and more often than not you will see that it's been disturbed in some way. It'll be really cool though the next year to see what pops back out of these cleared areas. You can see a little some yarrows growing straight through a little patch of poison ivy. We won't go in too deeply there, but neat to see. And surprisingly, no jewelweed has popped up around here yet. But I wonder if there are some witch hazel trees mixed in here that I just haven't noticed yet, because witch hazel can act as a really wonderful counter agent to that rash. Lots of dandelions already coming up. Asters. More goldenrod. Lots of repeat friends. Almost sounds like barking dogs, those geese. More honeysuckle down there, that lovely little bush. Oh, and then here we go. I'm not sure what that tree is. My husband just pointed to that guy back there with the white flowers. Don't know. Gotta look him up. Although it looks like it's horse chestnutty, not horse chestnut, maybe black. Oh no, it's right next to a different tree that looks more like horse chestnut. Here we go. We know who this is. Our friend St. John's wort. Still not quite in bloom, but a beautiful little patch right here. Again, had to stop and say hello. I don't know what this guy is. It's pretty though. If anyone has any thoughts, feel free to share, please. Thought I saw a wild sarsaparilla in there, but I am mistaken. That's a nice big piece of driftwood, hun. Just kidding. Lots of black oak. It's amazing. All right, back into the slightly more wooded section. Now this is crazy. Look how large this guy is. It's literally becoming a tree.
I guess that's the plan of the day.
Yeah, poison ivy, boundaries. Who needs the lessons of boundaries? All of us, I think, right now. This strange time of quarantine, figuring out what that means for everyone. But wow, it's like a shrub in this section. And so different. Once you start to notice it more and more, you can better spot it, just like anything. But it's always surprising to notice its variation. And it's funny how it's really not toxic to many animals. Goats love it. You can order goats to come clear your property of it. Well, I have a feeling we're gonna see more of down by where we parked as we come full circle. More of the geranium sprinkled through. Yep, geranium, yeah. Yep, beautiful. I love those guys. Beautiful. I always miss their bloom time, but this year, and here's just another plot of just the leaves, which is what we saw at that other spot at the, that sort of Dover, down by the ballpark area off of 6th Street, where I wasn't certain that's what it was, but now we can confirm it. That's the horse chestnut again. Yeah.
That's what it looks like, a baby?
Yes. Mm-hmm. This is vinca, or periwinkle, this whole little plot, and you can see a few of the little purple blooms. We talked about this plant briefly, another really powerful astringent externally for wound washes, for eye rinses. Look at all the little baby. I can't lean in too much, but you can see the little sumac berries starting. Oh, you know what? How funny. Oh, that's not. I thought it was. It almost looks like witch hazel, but it's been eaten up by a deer, so fake out. Leaf shape is a little different. Is it just a loop? It looks like it just loops. Got some sweet clover here. This is mostly a toxic plant, from my understanding. It'll get the little yellow flowers, but you can see the red clover in the back and then sweet clover in the front here. I know there are some herbalists that will use it similarly in small doses, like celandine, because of its potency, but I've not. But just as an ID here, this is a sweet clover, yellow sweet clover. Hi. What do you say? Oh, collecting. Oh, we've got a little lonely patch of muggy. I'm gonna say hi to mugwort. Yeah, you don't usually see mugwort in the woods. You can see the beautiful white undersides form in there. More wild rose mixed up in here. Gosh, so much poison ivy. It's amazing. It really is the plant of the day. Take your time, hun. My husband's looking for driftwood. He's my escort. All right, let's see if we can't spot anything through here. Oh, okay, so I believe, again, I can't be sure. These look a little more like rugosa plants, but they're still too young, but I'll show you anyways. These look a little bit more like Rosa rugosa, which are like the seaside rose, and we are right by the ocean. So these have like they're the best. In my opinion, they're the best rose that you would want to collect. And they typically have the hairy, oh, I'm not seeing that, the hairier types of thorns, where it's almost like a coat, like a fur coat of thorns. But they're the bright pink, so aromatic, so delicious smelling, and they're the best. I think they're the best kind of rose in the area. But you can use the multiflora as well. I'll have to check back and see if they develop that thick coat of thorns or not. But the way that the flowers were growing is another great example of autumn olive. They have the silvery backing of the leaves as well. So again, for folks that are going to the health food store buying olive capsules, make your own. Come out and harvest your own, because it's a very invasive plant and needs to be managed in some ways. And what better way to manage it than by making medicine with it? Plants only grow where they're needed. A nice plot of yarrow again. No flowers yet in the sky. Well, I'm very surprised we're not seeing more of the woodland guys that I was expecting to see, but I think on our way out, like I said, I think this area has just been a little bit more trampled, and so perhaps things got pulled up or cut back. So I bet next year will be even fuller. That's how felling works, sustainably done. Beavers are our natural fellers. They get a bad rep. Alright, so we're coming full circle here. And I think I'm going to scoot down the road from where we parked a little bit and check out some of those woods, because I did see what I thought were a few surprise friends on the way out. Tons of goldenrod. It'll be a field of gold, literally, next time I'm back here, probably. Oh, we've got another thistle. This is a little bit taller than the one that we saw before. And I believe, again, gotta wait for the bloom, but it looks like either bull thistle or Canada thistle. There's actually quite a few of them mixed in here. Much larger example of buttercup. burdock land. All right, so not as much as I had hoped, but we're gonna scoot around and walk down the road a little bit and see if we can wrap it up with a couple extra woodland friends to chat about. I'm gonna set my water down and we'll keep walking. Let's take a peek over here next to this trailer. Okay. Yes, yes. I already see one friend. Just scouting out. Oh, more poison ivy. Again, look, I know I'm harping on it hard, but look at just the difference in color every time, and just energy even. Okay, so first guy I saw was over here, and see if I want to hop at any poison ivy. But what we have back here is we've got wild sarsaparilla. And yes, sarsaparilla is the same root that it was traditionally used in root beer. But the way that we use it here, it is a root that we would dig up, and you'd want to make sure there were tons. And sarsaparilla is a cool plant that connects like its family through its root system. So usually if you look up and around, there's going to be another sarsaparilla maybe several feet away, and they connect the roots. And actually there's one a little further back there, you probably can't see it. So this would not be a good place to harvest from, this particular spot. But it's a wonderful blood cleanser, and it does have that sort of sweet scent. So this is a root that I often use in my winter tonic, just to tonify and cleanse the system, cleanse the liver, incorporate cooling the blood when the blood's inflamed or stagnated. We talk about alternatives, kind of hitting the reset button. Sarsaparilla is a really wonderful friend in that regard. It's cooling and it's cleansing. This side. Again, such a thick, huge patch. And you can see the flowers forming right there on the sky. All the same plant, look at that. Same plant, poison ivy. All this whole section. Now back here, I'm not going to touch it because I don't want to accidentally rub up against poison ivy. But you can see that leaf, that is wild. So we saw a tiny version of it at our last walk, and now we can see how much it's changed in this example. So, and it's how much taller it is as well. So it's actually probably about 3.5, 4 feet tall right there. How it's starting to change even more. I'm going to pause just for a moment to talk about Oriental bittersweet, which is this guy right here. It's a vine, and if you have it, you know it, and you're probably frustrated by it. The root is a bright orange color, and Timothy Lee Scott, it was the fellow who wrote the book on invasives, plant invasives, and he has a whole chapter on this plant. And it grows, it has a similar value to poison ivy in the way that it grows in disturbed soils, and it grows to help knit the ecosystem back together. So when there are species that are missing or used to grow in a spot and don't anymore, bittersweet has an ability to actually connect the species again. Even though it is considered an invasive, it has a way of reconnecting and drawing other species back to that area through its very deep, resilient roots that if you pull up, they snap off so they can keep growing the next season. Some herbalists do use it as a potent antibiotic in very small doses, so it's going to be drop dose to plants like celandine, but it can be used as a blood cleansing antimicrobial. So this is it right here, and you will see it wraps around and kind of kills out all of your friends in the garden. But again, it's just trying to regulate what might be broken within the ecosystem. So interesting to note, all invasives do have a purpose, but they do need to be managed. Moving through. So let's see if we can see examples. Oh, we've got some Solomon seal. Okay, so Solomon seal, and of course we're mixing with poison ivy, so I'm going to have to tread lightly here. But this is here, and if you flip it underneath, you see that there are the bell-shaped flowers on the underneath side. Now, false Solomon seal will have the flowers and berries at the top, a tuft here.